Hmm. Okay, we'll get started. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Today we have Cindy Black here. She's class of 86, so we're so grateful that Cindy is joining us today. Cindy is the current owner of the Big Tree School of Natural Healing, and Cindy is also a leader in U.S. for holistic healing. And I want to thank Cindy for taking the time to join us today and sharing her Chinese medicine for beginners. And now I'll let Cindy take it over.
All right, thank you, Shauna, and welcome everybody again. I'm Cindy Black, and yeah, I'm the founder of the Big Tree School of Natural Healing. And after I graduated from Cortland, I graduated in health education, and I continued trying to find different ways of healing. And long story short, I ended up going to Chinese medicine school, learning acupuncture and herbs in 2000, and then prior to that, I was a massage therapist. So I've been weaving in all kinds of alternative healing and alternative therapies together, combining that massage therapy, hands-on forms of healing with Chinese medicine. And out of that, I created the Big Tree School of Natural Healing. And what I like to do is to introduce people to Chinese medicine. So I'm glad that you're all here. And what I want to do is just present to you what I have, and then stay on for questions. So I probably have about a 20-25 minute presentation. So relax, enjoy your coffee or your sandwich, and then I'll take your questions at the end. So, and thanks a lot, Shauna, again, for having me. I'm happy to be here. Okay, so the outline for today is I'll introduce you to the basic building blocks of Chinese medicine, and then talk to you about how Chinese medicine can support you in ways that Western medicine doesn't. And then introduce you to some of the methods of Chinese medicine. And then, like I said, I'll stay on for questions and answers. So the first thing is to clarify what I mean by Chinese medicine. So what I'm interested in and what I teach about is called classical, or sometimes referred to as traditional Chinese medicine. This is the form that was developed thousands and thousands of years ago in China. So obviously in modern times in China, they have surgery and pharmaceuticals, all kinds of modern techniques. And they incorporate that in some places with traditional Chinese medicine. So what I'm talking about though is referred to as classical Chinese medicine. So from the old days, from way back when we were hanging out without the digital world, wondering what was going on, why are we here, what's happening? Okay, so the building blocks of Chinese medicine, very, very different than Western science. So to create a person, to think about the whole point of view, the perspective of Chinese medicine, even the basic building blocks are different. So the first thing is qi, and that's spelled Qi, but it's pronounced qi. That's the essential ingredient in Chinese medicine. And then next, we have the theory of yin and yang, the 5 elements, the 12 meridians, and then the acupuncture or the acupressure points. And this is the 5 basic things that we use or talk about within the practice of Chinese medicine. So first I want to talk to you about qi. And this isn't a really important concept in Chinese medicine. It's fundamental to everything. It's translated often as energy. It can also be translated as breath. But both of these little words are not enough to describe qi. It's considered to be the root of all life. So in order to be alive, we have to have qi. Without qi, there is no life. So if you've ever encountered a body where someone has died, or maybe an animal or a pet or anything like that, you know that that physical structure is not what it was when it was alive. So whatever is missing, we refer to that as qi. And it's a very important concept to keep in mind. This idea of a physical manifestation, again, the analogy that's often used is that of a tree. So, you know, you can bump into a tree, or walking down the road, you can bump into that physical manifestation. But we know that there's much more to that tree. There's a root to the tree that gives life to it. So we can only encounter what's above ground. The invisible root, though, just like a tree root that we can't see, in Chinese medicine, that's qi, that's the energy. And some things about qi, again, I'm going to keep banging this home, is that it's the basis of our physical manifestation. So it's energetic. We can't really see it. It's hard to encounter, but without it, there is no physical form, or there is no physical life. And when we talk about that physical manifestation, it's understood that it's body, mind, spirit, and emotion. So in Western medicine, sometimes we talk about the body over here and emotions over there, and it's all separate. But here in Chinese medicine, it's all contained, and it all arises from the same thing. And that one same thing is qi. So we understand then that the state of our body, mind, emotions, and spirit, that all reflects the state or the condition of our qi. So if we're happy and healthy, we're enjoying our life, we're clear in our mind, we're doing what we want to do, we feel like we have enough energy for the day, all those things that we consider to be healthy, then we would say that our qi is balanced and flowing. If we're anything less than that, then we have some kind of imbalance, and often the qi is blocked. Okay, so in Chinese medicine, we look at the manifestation, we observe the manifestation, meaning you as a human being, what's going on in your body, your mind, your emotions, your spirit, and then we assess what's going on with the qi. Again, it's not obvious, the five senses. It's not obvious. Qi is just not this obvious thing. We don't necessarily see it or hear it or taste it or smell it, but we can sense it. So often that idea of our sixth sense, that thing where you just kind of know or feel or sense something, that's the way that we understand qi. And as a practitioner, we spend a lot of time developing our ability to sense qi. And it's the root of all living beings. Okay. Continuing on about qi, important to keep in mind again that it's the basis of our material body. So we have this invisible thing. It's hard to encounter. We can't understand it necessarily with our five senses, but it's the basis of our life. And importantly, we can utilize that qi in order to support the healing of our body, mind, and spirit. Okay. And Chinese medicine is always going to be looking towards qi. And we can also utilize it to maximize our health and to prevent all kinds of imbalances that would be termed illnesses in Western medicine. So really, it's this nice little rhyme, that qi really is the key to understanding Chinese medicine. It's the basis of everything. It's what we're working with. It's what we are assessing, and it's what we want to treat in order to bring about harmony and balance. The next building block in Chinese medicine is yin and yang. So this is a fundamental theory developed thousands and thousands of years ago. You may have seen this symbol. It's called the Tai Chi, and it's the symbol for yin and yang. So on the white side, that's the that's the yang aspect, and the dark side is the yin aspect. In the West, we have the same. We have two sides of the same coin. It's another reflection of yin and yang, right? So you can't have heads without tails. You can't have tails without head. And so what yin and yang theory is about that fact that we can't have day without night, or cold without hot, and wet without dry. And so those notions are known as forces. And the idea is that everything that's manifest in reality, including us, is kind of brought about by the interchange, the relationship of yin and yang. So we have to have qi to be alive. We have to have both yin and yang communicating together in harmony also in order for there to be life. Okay, so that is a huge theory as well. So we assess what the qi is like, we might say, oh, there's too much yang or too much yin or not enough of this or not enough of that. But we're always trying to balance qi and keep it moving and flowing. And the qi is also reflected in terms of yin and yang. So that is a huge theory, and it's fundamental, again, to the practice of Chinese medicine. And then another aspect are called the 5 elements. So these are the 5 elements: fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. And they're in a particular order, and every element is associated with the season. So we follow the seasons around, and we have these elemental transition times. So we're moving into spring here, theoretically. We should be moving out of winter by now and into spring. Just like those seasons change and shift, the elements change and shift. There is a cycle to them. There's a relationship between all of them. It's kind of like yin and yang is pretty broad, just 2 things, left and right, night and day. We get a little more specific here with the 5 elements. We can break things down now. Instead of just from yin and yang, we can see them through 5 elements and get a sense of things. Okay, so we have qi, yin and yang, 5 elements. And then that's a lot of the background theory. And then when you get into the physiology of Chinese medicine, it's an energetic physiology. And the qi then is going to flow through meridians. And there are 12 meridians in the body. And these are the energetic pathways that run from head to toe, longitudinally along the arms, down the back, all of that. And this is just an example of one of the 12 meridians, the heart meridian. And it's shown there in red on this guy's arm, okay? The meridians are on both limbs, but they're traditionally only shown on one side, just to mess you up, but no, really so that you can think about it and notice what are the landmarks that we're using in order to identify where that meridian is. So we have this energy, qi, and it flows in an orderly fashion through meridians. It's just like following blood flow around through the arteries and veins. We can't really say it starts at the heart, right? That's just a kind of made up reference point, but the blood is constantly flowing in this closed circuit loop of blood vessels in an orderly fashion through the body. And it's the same thing with the 12 meridians. The qi is flowing through those 12 meridians in an organized system. Now there are these points. You may have heard of acupuncture points or acupressure points or just points. And along that flow of any meridian, there are specific points located in very specific places. Altogether, there's about 365 points. So what I'm showing you here is an example of the heart meridian on the arm, on the forearm. And then there's a point called heart 7 right there on the wrist. So at very specific locations along meridian are these points. And those points are places where we can access the qi or influence the qi, okay? The analogy that I always use, I grew up going camping a lot and canoeing. And you know, if you're on a river, you can't stick your canoe in just anywhere. There has to be a precise place, you know? So sometimes it might be a secret location, or you know, a park where there's a place you can drive up and drop your canoe in. So those are access points to the water. And these points, and the way we talk about qi and meridians, it's very much like rivers and water. So the river bed would be like the meridian, and the water would be like the qi. So we have qi flowing in meridians, and then these access points, places where maybe you can go fishing or places where you could stick your canoe in, those would be the points. And it's at those points that we can affect the flow of qi, the flow of energy throughout the body. Okay, keep breathing. Here's a image of a poster that has all 12 meridians drawn in on it and just 108 of the points. Okay, so again, these points are in very precise places. They're all over the body, and they're located on the 12 primary pathways. Okay, so the idea is that we have these meridians, no matter where you go, you can't leave home without them. They're there, even if you don't know about them. And as practitioners, Chinese medical practitioners, we can work with those points in order to affect the flow of qi, in order to harmonize body, mind, emotions, and spirit. Okay, so it's a whole approach to health and happiness, really. So I just wanted to point out a couple of differences between modern medicine and Chinese medicine. These are just some broad strokes to help you put it in perspective. In modern medicine, we work to resolve physical manifestations. So if my shoulder hurts, I go to whoever and they might give me an aspirin, or they might give me some exercises, but it's like, ow, my shoulder hurts, so we're gonna just fix that physical manifestation. In Chinese medicine, what we're doing is we're going to harmonize the qi. So, you know, all those meridians that flow through the shoulder, I'm gonna work with the flow of qi in order to resolve that physical manifestation. Okay. Another difference is that in Western medicine, we really rely on objective technology. So we have blood tests, we have MRIs, we have all those things to diagnose. That's what we're really using, these objective tools to evaluate and come to a diagnosis. In Chinese medicine, it's more subjective because we're observing. So we observe the tone of voice, the color, everything. There's a whole form of looking at your tongue in order to understand what's going on internally. And when we feel the pulse in Chinese medicine, it's a whole different story because we're trying to feel for the harmony or disharmony of qi in all of the organs. So these are very subjective methods. And then lastly, in terms of treatment, in Western medicine, primarily what's used are surgery and pharmaceuticals in order to resolve some sort of physical imbalance. And in Chinese medicine, there's a whole batch of things that we might use. Acupuncture, and I'm going to walk you through all of these methods next, okay? But there's a lot of different approaches to work with qi in order to bring about harmony. And then I just wanted to put this out so that you think about the context of things. And also it helps you choose maybe when I should go see a Chinese medical practitioner versus a Western medical practitioner. If we think about the development of an illness or any kind of condition from this perspective of Chinese medicine, we're going to say that it begins with an energetic imbalance. So over there on the left is very, very faded, but it takes time for things to become an obvious physical manifestation. Okay, it might take decades. It might be, you know, yeah, I've been driving a truck for 30 years. It was fine when I was 20, but now that I'm 50, I can barely move. My back hurts. So, but all that time it took before the pain arose, or maybe it's a herniated disc or something, and that's a very physical manifestation. But there was a time before that where things were getting into place. And so one of the great benefits of Chinese medicine is that we can evaluate and treat an energetic pattern before it gets solidified, before it gets really dense and becomes a physical manifestation, okay? With modern medicine, the diagnostics are not going to pick up the energetic situation. We have to wait until it gets dense enough or big enough or bad enough or whatever you want to call it. But then we have these really great tools for looking into the body and seeing a physical manifestation, okay? In my ideal world, we would be using both at different times, integrating the highlights of each form of medicine, okay? So when you understand or consider the history of developing any kind of physically obvious condition or even emotional or mental imbalance, there's a history there. And that's where Chinese medicine can really shine. So from that, some ways that this form of medicine can support you is by getting into that idea of qi and supporting the balance and harmony of qi all of the time. And we have lots of different approaches, but always the intention is to have abundant and flowing qi. When I have plenty of qi, plenty of energy, and it's flowing nicely through those rivers, I'm all good. And so if I think about that and I think about ways to harmonize and have my qi abundant and flowing each day, then that's ensuring my future health and happiness. So it gives us ways to care for ourselves with non-toxic remedies. It could be just as simple as taking a walk or being mindful of different things. All of these come into play in terms of keeping that qi abundant and flowing throughout the body. And as we have that, then we're going to prevent all kinds of chronic conditions because we're actively doing something to keep that qi going so that we're not moving along that idea of an energetic imbalance just sitting there for decades, and then it shows up as arthritis or herniated disc or something. Within Chinese medicine, there's a few things that require a practitioner and a bunch of things that don't. So acupuncture, the use of needles, sticking needles in somebody, you probably don't want to do that on yourself. So we go to school forever to figure that out. The use of herbs, Moxibustion, I'll tell you what that is if you don't know, and also Meridian Massage, which I teach and practice. That's a form of massage therapy, hands-on work, and cupping. And then things you can do for yourself. You can make food adjustments. You can harmonize, balance your qi through movement. There's lifestyle adjustments. I don't know if you can remember back to when I talked about the 5 elements, but each element is associated with a season. So we want to shift what we eat, how much sleep we have, what kind of exercise. We shift that all through the seasons in order to stay in harmony with nature. Because with classical Chinese medicine, we are understood to be relating an intricate part of nature. Even if we live in a city, we're totally being affected by the nature around us, and we affect nature. So we talk about our relationship to the universe all of the time. And then you can work on yourself. You can press those acupuncture points, just doing self-acupressure. So here's a picture of some acupuncture needles. The term needle kind of makes it seem like it's a lot bigger in the West because we're used to, syringes, and that's not what we're using. They're more like pins. They're very, very fine needles, and they're inserted into those specific points along the meridians. So each point has an effect. They'll usually affect the local area, but they also would have a physiological effect. Something like it might help move the qi up in your head, even though we're putting a needle in at your foot. Okay, and that's the benefit of knowing the pathways of the meridians. So acupuncture is a very powerful way to connect with the qi and help move things along in order to resolve some of those physical imbalances. The practice of herbology is a huge endeavor in Chinese medicine. So again, think 5,000–10,000 years ago, you're hanging around, there's all these plants, and the development of understanding how to use those different plants in order to alleviate all kinds of issues and suffering that you're witnessing. And so we have to learn the entire theory, the qi, yin and yang, 5 elements, yada, yada. And then we understand how to use herbal formulas to help balance the qi. So Moxibustion, this is a form of heat that we put onto the different points. And so what you're seeing there, those little, like those little pyramids, that's a specific herb. It's a specific plant that's powdered, and then we heat it up. So that person's using an incense stick basically to light that moxa. So the moxa is going to be on fire and hot. So again, training is involved in order to understand how to do this safely, when you would do it, and what points you would put it on. It's a really wonderful technique though, and we can add heat in. So especially for those of us living way up north, when it's really cold in the winter and you want to get some heat into you, this is a great way to do it. But again, don't do it at home by yourself. Meridian massage, the work that I teach, we're using hands-on, working with the meridians and the points and all of the lifestyle adjustments in order to support a person back to health and harmony. And then cupping. Sometimes you see this, you know, in Hollywood when people have all those like suction cup circles on their back. This is how they're getting them. So what you're seeing there is this practitioner, he's holding a glass cup in his right hand, and in his left hand, he has a flame. See that? So what we do is we take the cup, you put the flame inside that cup and it sucks the air out, and then you stick it quickly down on a point, and then you can sort of see that the skin gets sucked up into the cup. It sounds barbaric, but it has a point. It has a intention, and that again, so we're working with specific meridians, and we're pulling different pathologies out. You know, again, we're energetic, we're pulling different pathologies out of those meridians, again, in order to help support the flow of qi through them. So, you know, people are going to school for a long time. It's 3.5 years to get the qualifications to get your license. It's a big endeavor to learn all of these things and to learn how to use them safely. Now, some things you can do for yourself, these are food adjustments. There's a whole study of nutrition in Chinese medicine, again, based on this theory. So one very simple thing that we would be doing is, it's in the summertime that you would eat more cold foods or raw foods. But you wouldn't do that in the winter because it's cold outside, and that can accentuate the possibility of catching a cold. Okay, so we balance out the cold by eating warm foods in the winter. So I know this sounds really, really simple, but it becomes quite complex. And as you learn the different associations with each season, you start to see that you could be even more conscious in your food choices. And we do this a lot anyway. It's kind of built in. But as you become more and more conscious of it, you can really see different patterns and ways to make small changes that equal big additions in your health and harmony. So nutrition, working with food, is a huge part of Chinese medicine. And then movement. So you may have heard of Qigong or Tai Chi. Those are ancient practices focused directly on the qi. And so through mindful movement, conscious movement, breath, meditation, all of these things that we can do for ourselves in order to support that balance of qi and the flow of qi throughout our body. These are very important techniques in terms of self-care and maintaining our own health. And so I just wanted to give an example of this lifestyle adjustments. So these are kind of the habits and things we have to work with within ourselves in order to find some balance and harmony. So the 5 elements, I'm just taking 2 of them here. The wood element is associated with spring, and the metal element is associated with fall. So these 2 seasons are opposite each other. So just like you wouldn't be wearing your winter coat because it feels so good in the winter, you wouldn't want to be wearing that in the summer, right? So a simple lifestyle adjustment that you do all the time is you change how many layers of clothes you have on during different seasons. Those are lifestyle adjustments. But we can really drill down on that. So in the springtime, when everything's bursting up and getting going, that's when we want to be that way physically. So we would do more vigorous movement then. In our diet, we would eat more sour foods. So think about fruit that's not quite ripe, right? That might be forming in the springtime, but it's not ripe yet. That's sour. So that's the taste that's associated with the wood element. It's a great time for starting new projects because it's the springtime, it's the beginning. And a prevalent weather thing that's going on in the spring is wind. So we have extra protection against the wind. So we do, that we call it a climatic factor, is associated with the springtime and the wood element. So we want to be doubly careful about it during that season. Opposite that, we see the fall. The leaves are dropping off the trees, the energy is going inward. the tree, you know, the sap is rising in the springtime and it's going down in the fall. Everything's returning to the roots to get ready for winter time. So we mirror that. We would do more gentle movement. We would let go of a lot of the excess. So it's a great time for yard sales and clearing out your closets, because you want to be like nature, let go of all that excess stuff. The dry factor is big in fall, so we want to protect against that extra amount in the fall time. And things like garlic and onions, ginger, those are all spicy, pungent foods that really benefit us. We want to think about that, adding that into our diet more in the fall, springtime. Okay, so that's just a quick example of how we might make adjustments. This is just pressing an acupressure point. You can, you know, a lot of people work different points on themselves in order to relieve pain, bring in balance, calm down. There's so many things you can do for yourself. And I want to just finish with encouraging you, or opening things up a little bit, that by expanding our awareness to include Qi, you really do open yourself up to a very powerful and ever-present resource for healing, because Qi is all around us. It's responsible not just for our life, but for the life of the planet, the universe, everything that we consider to be alive. So can be a big stretch for a Western mind. It certainly was for me, but as I explore it more and more and more, I'm more and more moved by the potential of it, and how my study of it and turning my attention towards Qi and all of these things has really benefited me in every possible way. So now I'm ready to take your questions. Anything that you would want to talk about in terms of Chinese medicine, I'm happy to do my best to answer them for you.
So the first question we have is from Lisa and David. They were wondering where you were located.
Right now I'm just outside Ithaca, New York.
Perfect.
Spencer.
Does anyone have some additional questions?
Did it make any sense?
Please feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A.
Yeah, what are you wondering about? Or I'm curious if anybody's ever had acupuncture or acupressure. Have you ever worked with a Chinese medical practitioner before? Or...
David said he enjoys the presentation. Lisa wants to know if you could describe sour foods.
Yeah, sour foods are like lemons, things that make you go like, ooh, but lemon is a really good sour food. Pickles, things that are fermented. I feel like I'm on, I don't know, some of those game shows. Things that are fermented, pickles. Sour gummy bears, but that kind of stuff. Think about lemon as a really good one to think about. And one of the things that people often do during the springtime, a lot of times you hear about the spring cleanse, is to have a little cup of warm water and squeeze some lemon, like fresh lemon juice, into that and drink that first thing in the morning. It's a little intense, but it helps to clear out, supposedly it's said to help clear out the liver, and a lot of Western herbalists do that. So, but that all matches up with Chinese medicine as well.
Tina said she had both when you said something. You must have said something.
Oh, yeah.
She had both, and she also had cupping as well.
Oh, wow. Excellent. That's fun.
David said he had acupuncture for a migraine, and I've used acupressure on myself for migraines as well.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, there are some things that Chinese medicine is so good at. Like a lot of times, if Western medicine can't figure out, if it's like, oh no, we don't have any idea, then Chinese medicine has an answer, and vice versa. You know, first aid, surgery, things like that.
Yeah.
You can't beat Western medicine for that.
Lisa says, my Chinese medical guy is in Rochester. Always wonderful to see him and have used herbs and acupuncture.
Oh, great.
Tina wants to know if you've ever worked with dogs.
I haven't. I have a couple of cats that I play around with. Well, and with friends, I'll, you know, their dogs, I'm often massaging their dogs or working the points with different, but nothing official. But yes, the points and the meridians, they're on animals, and not a lot, but there is a whole society of veterinarians who use Chinese medicine with animals. Then you could look that up on the web. If you look up Chinese medicine veterinarian, you'll probably come across that group. I can't rattle their name off right now, but yeah, but you would want to have, your vet would need to be specifically trained, because you're sticking a needle and you need to understand the underlying structure in order to be safe with that.
David asked, do you have any recommended resources?
Well, in terms of which way? I have if you look up Big Tree School of Natural Healing, you'll get to my website. It's bigtreehealing.com. And I have a blog there with tons of articles, if that's the kind of thing you're looking at. I have online courses. And also on that website, there's a link called resources, where I list all the books and things that I enjoy. So if you want to read more about Chinese medicine, there's a ton of information that you can access there.
He said, yes, thanks.
Sure.
What about Tai Chi?
In terms of practicing, if you look up the Taoist Tai Chi Society, they often have free classes. Just depends if they're in your area or not.
Lisa would like to know, do you teach classes on the self-acupuncture?
I teach, that's such a big question. I have different online classes. So what I do is, people ask me questions and it just takes me a while to answer them. So for me, it's important to understand the theory behind why you might be doing this, that, or the other point, because the thing that's so important to understand is Qi, and to develop a relationship with Qi. And there's something about our human consciousness or our human mind that the more we know about something, then the better we can be at it. For instance, somebody could tell you, oh, press here, this is an acupressure point to relieve your headache. And you might just be pressing it and being like, I don't know, it doesn't do anything. But it's the nature of Qi that I've noticed for myself and other people that I teach, that when we have a little guidance in what Qi is, how to sense it, where to look for it, how to be with it, our consciousness, our conscious awareness, or directing our attention towards Qi, that wakes this whole thing up. And in understanding some of the theory behind that point, the energetics of it, all of that adds to your understanding. And then when you press that point, you have a reliable response that actually works, basically. And so my online classes are all about that. I go through the theory of yin and yang, the 12 meridians, the 5 elements, all of that. And it takes a while. It just takes, it's a endeavor to figure out. It's definitely doable. And so that's why I've put everything online. And then I do teach classes in person, but obviously not these days. So, all of that's updated on the website though.
Perfect. Mike Fusili asked, what would be next steps for acupressure or cupping? Is this lifestyle gradual or all in? Is there a website to identify local Chinese medicine practitioners?
Yeah, I think that it's a gradual thing to move into, and it's a really, for me, it's just been a wonderful adventure, because when I went to school for Chinese medicine, it was very academic, and I was surprised by that because of my history in massage therapy. I knew a fair amount about the meridians, and I expected it to be a much more energetic exploration, but in fact it was very academic. And so after that, I really had to challenge myself to sink into what Qi was, and to understand these different elements and understand what yin and yang was. And one of the things that I appreciate about classical Chinese medicine and lots of traditional medicines is the emphasis on a person's personal experience, and that is as important as the academic experience. So, you know, you can read books and, you know, have a lot of letters after your name, but still not be able to do anything because you don't have a personal experience or understanding with Qi. And that's developed a little bit at a time, really just by putting your attention towards Qi. So it might be a couple of points that you try to work with. What I did is I went around all day asking myself, what's Qi, I don't get it. And, but I also had a massage practice, so I would be having my hands on people, just wondering, like, how can I feel energy? Because I was trained to feel muscles and bones and tendons and joints, very physical, but how do I feel this energy? So I would just keep asking myself and directing my attention there. And Qi is alive. So honestly, I developed a relationship with it and continue to come back to it and let that lead me wherever that might go. And so it's gradual that way. Next steps would be, like you did today, coming to this and just getting introduced to it and kind of understanding the context of what you're getting yourself into, and then just trying different practitioners. You can Google that, but there's also, like in New York State, acupuncture is a licensing profession. So you could look up licensed acupuncturist in New York, and you would go to the New York practitioner page or something like that. Nationally, there's national organizations where you can look up practitioners. I always recommend asking lots of people for a personal reference. That's really the best way to go if you can, and just keep asking around. And then if you're going to an acupuncturist, it's very common for them to say it might take 6 to 10 sessions to clear whatever it is up, because it takes a little while. But something should be changing. You should notice a change after 6 or 7 appointments. It shouldn't be, you know, like, oh yeah, come for a year and a half, 3 times a day, you know, like, it's not like that. It really should, you should have an experience within 6 to 10 sessions of something is happening, because it takes a while to understand the impact and to feel things and put changes in place. But, you know, like any profession, there's people that are good at it, people that you align with, and people that you don't. So if you're not getting results after 10 sessions, I would say move on to someone else.
Perfect. Another question. I have 1, 2, 3 more questions.
Okay.
I have a hiatal hernia, which is aggravated by spicy and citrus vinegary foods. What would you suggest to help heal?
Yeah, well, I think that's a really good understanding, a good awareness about how the spicy food and the citrus food is affecting this hernia. So the first thing we would have to do, I can't give you like a 1, 2, 3 answer, but within Chinese medicine, so hiatal hernia is like a Western diagnosis, right? But you're an individual with this hiatal hernia. So we would have to understand, there would be a lot of questions about who you are, and then what your experience of that is. So everybody's experience of a hiatal hernia is different. Not everybody's going to have an experience of it that would be accentuated by spicy food or hot food. But you saying those 2 things, then I would have a series of questions to ask based on that, because those are 2 big clues. The spicy foods being associated a little bit with the metal element, right? Maybe citrus sour things being affected with the wood element. So I would start asking you more questions there, and then doing a personal assessment, and then figuring out how to best balance and harmonize your energetic system to help that physical manifestation of that hernia ease off and move away. But it would be a combination of self-care things that you would do for yourself, little lifestyle changes, maybe massage, might be herbs, might be acupuncture. All of those things need to get put into place. So my recommendation is to work with a practitioner because it's that in-person, over time relationship that you can develop with somebody to get the best help.
Great. How long and how many times would be suggested to massage and press the key spots for issues?
My answer is to always say it depends, because that's just the reality, is that it always depends. Depends on, again, on the person, on the situation, how long it's been there. You know, like shoulder pain that I've had for 3 days is really different than shoulder pain that I've had for 20 years. So those are, and you might use the same points to help relieve the shoulder pain if it was 3 days or 20 years, but you might have to work with them with acupuncture needles versus massage. You know, like there's lots of different dynamics. But when people are getting started with us using your, you know, massaging yourself, massaging those own points, I recommend that you begin with following your breath for 5 cycles. So in and out is 1, in and 2, right? Make contact with those points for 5 breaths and then adjust. We always have to notice what's going on. Like if I'm pressing the point, when there's a change, then I would have to adjust. So we don't just hold the point for 10 seconds and, you know, watch the TV. You're trying to bring your mind and your own energetic system as you make contact with the point, stay present there and feeling your breath, noticing what's going on, little changes with yourself, and allow your body to make little changes. You might find that, oh, I want to move a little bit on the point, or oh, I want to be still, or maybe I want to increase my pressure or decrease my pressure. All of these things are happening as we're being responsive to the changes in the flux of qi. So take your time, be curious. Being curious is one of the best approaches that I've ever seen. So you just have to wonder, be curious, experiment, hang around there long enough, make adjustments, and develop your own relationship, honestly, with the different points and with qi.
Last question. From your perspective, what are some vital self-care routines for our quarantine time?
Well, so keeping in mind that that vitality comes from flowing qi, from abundant and flowing qi, meaning it's moving. So again, if we picture a river, a nice, like in your mind, or maybe it's in your backyard, is this fabulous, pristine water, sparkling in the sunshine, flowing down a river. That's perfect. And that's kind of that pristine, fresh qi flowing through our body. Everything's good. But the opposite of that is, let's say there's a dam, or like the leaves. I have a lot of leaves getting stuck in my old drainage ditch, right? So there's all these leaves that get stuck, and now we have a buildup behind it. It gets muddy and crummy and crappy. And so in our body, we would say that's stagnation. So there's some kind of blockage. And again, this is energetic. There's some kind of blockage. And behind that, we have this energy building, and that can arise as pain or tired or fatigue or crabby or grumpy or short temper. So we're in quarantine, we're stuck at home, maybe not getting, so you want to keep the qi flowing. So if you can, I recommend taking a walk, breathing in the fresh air. Another translation for qi is breath, right? So bringing in fresh air, that replenishes our qi. Because you might be wondering, well, how do I get more energy? Well, we get qi, we acquire it through food and drink, and also through the air. So we want fresh qi. So getting fresh air. If you can't get outside, if you can at least open a window and just be mindful, just be conscious while you're breathing in that fresh air and really enjoying it and bringing it into your body. Moving, stretching out a little bit. Doesn't have to be a full-on yoga class, just kind of going through your joints, getting some movement going while you're being mindful of it. So the thing with qi is that it's there all the time. We just have to turn our attention towards it. So it could be 15 minutes of stretching, breathing, moving, but you're there with yourself versus watching the TV news and stretching, because then my mind's not with me. Okay, so I want to be with myself while I'm moving, while I'm breathing, and then you'll start to feel, maybe you feel tingly, maybe you feel heat moving. That's your chi. And so the point being that I want to encourage us all to keep our chi flowing. And so physically we can do that by moving, by stretching, by breathing in fresh air, and remembering, there's so much unknown going on, and there can be so much chaos and fear, but we have this big earth beneath us that's always supporting us, and it's reliable. Spring is coming. The leaves are unfurling. There is a bigger picture of change that's beyond all of us, and we can rely on that, and nurturing that relationship with whatever it is that changes things, that moves things. Change is always happening, just sometimes it's more obvious than others. So this is a time of obvious change, but just like that diagram of developing pain in the shoulder, let's say, it was unseen, it was energetic, building, 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 and then it gets obvious. So even the resolution is building, building, building. It may not be obvious now. So for me, I find contemplating these things very, very important. Feeling the support of the earth beneath me. So the 5 elements, the earth is a central element. So feeling our connection to the earth, or rekindling it. These elements they're not metaphors, they're not stories, they're based on lived experience from people thousands and thousands of years ago, handed down to us today. So even though the world looks really different, we're much more urban than it ever was thousands of years ago, we are still in relationship with nature. And if we expand that relationship, then we open ourselves up to the resources of nature that are around us. And there's a lot of resources in every single season, in every element. There are all these resources available to us. All we have to do is turn our attention towards them. So focusing on abundant and flowing chi and opening ourselves to the resources of nature are the things that I'm practicing and encouraging anybody who wants to listen to do during this time.
David had one last question. Could you mention the Tai Chi Society's name again?
Sure, it's called the Taoist. It's spelled Taoist. Even though it starts with a T, we kind of say Tao. So Taoist Tai Chi Society.
Perfect. Well, that is all the questions. And I want to say thank you to you very, very much. And we appreciate all your time and your great presentation. It's very interesting. And I really appreciated you taking the time to do this for us.
Sure. My pleasure. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you again. Thanks to all the attendees. We appreciate your support. Have a good day, everybody.
Thanks. You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.